Recently, there was a news that nearly 67% of India's LPG imports came from the US. मतलब nearly two-thirds of the cooking gas imports came from the US. अब ऐसा this is like very unique kind of development. So this explainer talks about what are the major implications of this LPG import, this much LPG import coming from the United States, and how India should improve its own standing. So instead of, like you can read this article, but instead of going by sentence, I would like to share a question and we will try to understand how this article can be understood. So the question would be, India's energy security requires balancing the imperatives of affordability, strategic autonomy and domestic socio-political interests. Obviously, बात है, you all know that India is like an energy dependent country. It used to like import crude oil and cooking gas, LPG, natural gas from majorly from Gulf countries, and now like it is importing from US as well. It also sources from Australia and as far as from Venezuela. Now, यहाँ तक बात ठीक थी, but what about if we are shifting our traditional systems like import system, like traditionally we have been dependent on Gulf, now we are shifting to US. Now the question arises, why did we shift, and implications of this shift. Obviously we need to analyze why we are actually shifting to US, particularly with LPG. So the first thing you need to understand in terms of affordability. Affordability means to what extent the energy is like in LPG or crude oil is cheap. It is affordable by the households, Indian households. कितनी आसानी से खरीद सकते हैं, how much it is costing. This affordability depends basically on you can understand it in two ways. First is supply disruption. If the supply is disrupted, for example, as happened recently during US-Iran war, then the cost will go up. Very much true. If supply gets disrupted, then cost will go up. And if the cost will go up of the imported items, then obviously the households will have to pay more. Second aspect you need to understand is about geography. Geography of supply source. It means from where the supply is actually coming from. If you look at the map, you will understand that the Gulf countries are far more nearer as compared to United States. So even if like Gulf countries are like, suppose the cost of crude oil from the Gulf countries is costlier than the US, even if that the case, then the time taken and the cost of transportation from the US will be on higher side, and that will actually negate the benefits of lesser prices from the US. So geography of the supply source, that also relates to cost. If the source is far away from India, then the transportation cost will increase, and that transportation cost will ultimately impact the overall cost of the energy. So these are the two affordability dimensions that India as an energy dependent country needs to think of, needs to analyze properly before it makes any decision. Second thing is strategic autonomy. How can you connect energy with strategic autonomy? How to connect it? See, very simple. If you are, energy is an household item. Very much true. So if you are getting over dependent on one country, for your energy supplies, then that one country will be able to dictate terms, right? For example, suppose all of your or majority of your crude oil is getting sourced from a country, for example, United States, and United States knows this, and suppose you disconnect with all the other sources. You are not importing from Gulf, you are not importing from Russia. Then in that case, United States will have the ability to influence India's decisions, like how India is doing trade with other countries, how India is importing, how India is dealing with, for example, Pakistan or Russia. That also can be influenced by US. US may threaten to increase the cost of the crude. US may threaten to reduce the supply of the energy. So that things, those will actually, that is called dictating of terms. For example, in terms of imposing of sanctions, right? In US very recently imposed sanctions on India for importing from Iran and Russia. So that is called dictating of terms. So this US did when we were not dependent on US for energy, though we have very good trade relationship with the US. So that is why US, our dependency on US in terms of trade, in terms of defense, in terms of economic systems, technology. So that's why US imposed sanctions. Just imagine what will happen if our dependence on US also increases in terms of LPG. So this is one of the important threats related to strategic autonomy. Second, you think this way, that this dependence on energy import will also lead to imposing of trade terms. For example, take it as the recent India-US trade deals. So if before the trade deal is getting finalized and we get dependent on US may try to leverage its position and impose or dictate some terms regarding a more favorable trade deal for the US, and this will ultimately lead to economic dependence in the longer term. अभी तो शुरुआत में चलो बिकॉज ऑफ एलपीजी हमने कुछ ट्रेड डील में रियायतें दे दी और यूएस को ज़्यादा फायदा हो गया ट्रेड डील से. वी थॉट दैट वी नीड मोर एनर्जी, मोर एलपीजी एट द मोमेंट. बट लॉन्ग टर्म में क्या होगा, हमारी इकोनॉमिक डिपेंडेंस भी यूएस के ऊपर हो जाएगी बिकॉज वी विल नॉट बी एबल टू डाइवर्सिफाई. So these two dimensions regarding affordability and strategic autonomy. Third, very important that has been discussed in this article is about domestic scenario. How it is related? It is very simple that energy is for every house. हर घर की जरूरत है एनर्जी. एंड इन दैट केस किसी भी तरीके का सप्लाई डिस्ट्रप्शन, एनी डिस्ट्रप्शन इन सप्लाई और एनी इंक्रीज ऑफ कॉस्ट विल लीड टू सोशल टेंशन. होता है कि नहीं? अगर पता चल जाए कि पेट्रोल खत्म हो रहा है, देश में पेट्रोल की सप्लाई कम हो गई है, या पता चल जाए कि कुकिंग गैस नहीं, एलपीजी सिलेंडर खत्म हो रहे हैं, तो पीपल देयर बिकम्स अ वेरी रेस अमंग द पीपल. सुबह से ही जाके लाइन में लगना, गैस सिलेंडर्स के लिए झगड़े करना, लड़ाई करना. सो दैट सोशल टेंशन इंक्रीजेस. एंड ऑल्सो द narratives against the government. Whichever government is in power, the narratives against that government will also grow sharper. That also grows sharper. So it has the India's energy security is also connected to India's domestic scenario in terms of social tension and political disruption. So these are some of the basic dimensions that have been discussed in this article. But अगर आप इस article को ऐसे ही ऊपर से अगर आप पढ़ेंगे ना प्लेन लेवल पे, तो you will not be able to identify it. But purpose of this session is to let you understand कि how to identify. तो यही चीज़ें डिस्कस की गई हैं. दिस आर्टिकल ऑल्सो मेंशन सम ऑफ द सजेशंस कि आप इस चीज़ों को कैसे ठीक कर सकते हैं. तो इट टॉक्स अबाउट something like strengthen local production, bolster multiple supply chains and build more strategic reserves. This could be acted as a way forward in this answer. बहुत जरूरी है कि आप अपना मल्टीपल सप्लाई चेन्स को करें. यू शुड नॉट गेट ओवर डिपेंडेंट. ओवर डिपेंडेंट इज समथिंग very important in this article. So you should not get over dependent. So this was about the first article. Now we will move to our second article. This article relates to like online crimes, online threats. They are like growing at a very fast pace, but the remedial systems that our country has, that is not growing at that pace. How so? So it is very decently written over here that if you are revealing the identity of someone in the online world, then that identity gets revealed, gets viral very fast. If you are like giving some threat, if you are like revealing some private details, if you are creating some AI generated videos, so they travel very fast. But the person, the victim who is seeking a remedy, the remedial system is not that fast. सो दिस इज लाइक बहुत ही छोटा सा आर्टिकल है, बट बहुत कॉमन चीज़ है कि आप इन आर्टिकल्स को स्किप कर जाएंगे. बट लेट मी टेल यू व्हाई दिस आर्टिकल इज इंपॉर्टेंट. नाउ रीड दिस क्वेश्चन. द रैपिड इवोल्यूशन ऑफ साइबर क्राइम और कंसिडर इट एज ऑनलाइन थ्रेट्स has exposed the limitations of conventional legal and institutional mechanisms. Examine. So how it is connecting the evolving scene of cybercrime, cyber threats to our conventional legal systems. So this is a very good interconnection, and this this article seemingly unimportant. Now it obviously becomes very important to understand and identify the points. So I will show you what are the points important over here. So first thing you should understand that okay, the cyber crime and online threats are evolving at a very rapid pace. You may need to like understand what are these cyber crimes or online threats. Online threats or harm, like online threats or harm is something like you are posting something very hateful content against a particular community or a particular person. You are revealing his or her identity and threatening him that you will be killed, you will be harassed, and like that. And those content is like they spread very fast on the internet. So what are the different types of cyber crimes and online threats that are being discussed in this article? Very first is something called doxing. Then there are gender-based harassment. That is also very obviously seen. Disclosing of identification. How it is being disclosed? Like your address, someone's address is being disclosed, someone's name is being disclosed, someone's contact number is being disclosed, someone's private pictures being disclosed. This can be disclosed, this can be put on internet just to harass that person. Next is something called very important, that is AI generated material. Using your picture, using your one group photo, using your picture with one of your friends, some deepfake is being created. And people are like those who are watching that, they very easily they believe that is a true image, that is a true video. But that is not true image, true video, and the victim has like irreparable damage. That is the core idea of this thing. Like the speed, the spread, these spread faster than the traditional system can check, and they cause irreparable damage to the victims. Now you need to understand this, why it is an irreparable damage. So suppose a picture is being made viral on the internet, and by the time the victim comes to know about it, that picture has already been seen by million people, and everyone starts judging that person, that victim, that this person is bad or so and so. So that is like an irreparable damage. Even after you remove that video will be saved, downloaded, shared multiple times. Even if it is removed from our online world, a couple of people will be having downloaded that on their devices. So that is an irreparable damage. So this recently the Supreme Court actually asked to frame something like how to tackle online threats and deepfake crimes. The Supreme Court said that we should have some time-bound emergency response. Why we need this time-bound energy response? Because our traditional legal remedial system is very slow and institutional speed. Why I am writing these words? Because you should use these words in your answers. Slow and institutional speed. Just one word, institutional speed, is loaded with value, loaded with information. It means that the speed of organizations, the speed how courts function, the speed how the police department functions, these are actually very slow in comparison to the speed of the online threats. For example, you file a complaint, right? In our traditional system, you file a complaint, then investigation will happen, then approval will be like at multiple hierarchies. Some authorities is at the superintendent of police level, some authorities at the level of DIG, some authorities available at the level of sub inspector. Multiple hierarchies हैं और उन सब hierarchies को लेकर के चलने में takes a lot of time. And by the time the final investigation report comes out or the actual judicial proceeding starts, it all has led to damage. All these lead to damage to the victim. So that's why it is very important that our traditional system evolves like the online threat system is evolving. So it suggests some way forward. What kind of way forward? First thing is that time-bound emergency mechanism. We have cyber cells in almost all the districts, but even those cyber cells, they work at very slow pace. We should have some time-bound emergency mechanism depending on different level of threats. So if the threat is very grave, if it is very urgent, then the time allowed to resolve that threat or to remove that content from the internet, that time required should also be less. So that time-bound system will ensure that our traditional system, how it functions, is not delaying the resolution of complaints regarding the online threats. Another very important suggestion it gives is about judicial or legal supervision of the process. So how the process is going on. So there should be proper supervision. Without supervision, it won't function. So these are some of the very good suggestions regarding and it stands at the interconnection of our judicial system, criminal justice system, and emerging online cyber threats. Now we will move to our third article. Third article is also something which is people can ignore very easily. But purpose of this session is to let you understand that not all articles are to be ignored. Sometimes small articles are very mains examination worthy, very highly examination worthy. So we have this article. This is regarding Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana DDU-GKY. So it is an scheme of union government that seeks to impart some skill training to the rural youth, so that if the rural youth are getting skilled, they will be able to get jobs say livelihood say poverty alleviation से societal cohesion and prosperity and overall economic and India's development. So ये पूरा connection ये तो आपको पता होगा, that is very general. Why this article is important? Because recently the Standing Committee on Rural Development has come up with some report regarding the functioning of this scheme. Let's understand it with a question. Why do government skill development programs struggle to translate training into employment? Identify the challenges and suggest measures. So we have very good skill training programs, right? But the challenge is of how we are, whether we are able to this translate this training employment. Whether we are able to translate it or not, that is the overall challenge. And this training and this conversion of training to employment, this actually depends on multiple factors. What are the multiple factors? First is quality of training. What kind of training is being imparted, whether that training is actually market ready, whether that training is actually demanding, whether that training is actually required at the industry or business levels. That is important. It also depends on attendance rate. Suppose 10,000 people enrolled in a particular training program, but with the time they lost interest, or because of their some other reasons, family or financial reasons, they could not attend the rates. So it is also talking about high dropout rates. The dropout rates are also high. Means people are joining, but with the time they are dropping out from the training. So their training remains incomplete, so obviously they won't be able to get job. It also talks about location of jobs. It talks about location of jobs in terms of migration. So suppose the training is being given in some rural village, a village in Uttar Pradesh, but the job is being provided in Maharashtra, Mumbai or Pune. And there are very meager chances, sometimes very often, the people cannot migrate. That migration is a challenge. They cannot leave their families alone back home. Then socio-cultural norms. Suppose the training is being given to a lady, a girl, a woman, and she is not allowed to move out of the state or village for the sake of job. That will also not convert to a good job. And there is a very good thing about on paper versus on ground implementation. Why I am saying this is it mentions that the performance of project implementing agencies should not be judged solely on the basis of initial placements, but on sustained employment retention. So there is a project implementation agency, PIA, under DDGKY. This PIA, when it starts its functioning in the initial month or initial 6 months or the initial years, it shows a very good placement. But with the time, that placement level declines. So this is something on paper and on ground implementation. शुरुआत में बहुत अच्छा काम किया, बाद में सब कुछ पेपर पे दिखला रहे, रियलिटी में कुछ है ही नहीं. So the conversion of training to employment depends on multiple factors. This gives some very good data regarding DDUGKY. What are the data? Data about how many people are trained and how many people got placed. Placed means got the job. So it says that nearly 18,38,000 people got trained up to March 2026, it mentions over here. But the placement happened only for less than 12 lakh people. Out of this 18.38 lakhs, nearly 9,65,000 were women, and here the number was 6,03,000. So you can understand the difference. Okay, women are nearly 50% of the women are getting training, but the number of women, percentage of women getting employed is actually that is also nearly 50%. Okay, actually it is more, that is also nearly more than 50%. But if you look at this number, a very good number. Nearly how much this number comes? This number comes to around 6,34,000 people could not be placed. So you are giving training to nearly 18 lakh people, but 1/3 of the people are not getting placed. So this is the concern that this standing committee highlighted, that it said that you should aim for nearly 100% placement. This is the recommendation of the standing committee, that you aim for nearly 100% placement. It also gives some suggestions, some way forward, how you can do this. Industry linkage. It mentions industry linkage, industry linked training, localized placement drives, regular post training follow-ups, credit facilitation, so that even if the person is has got trained and is not able to get job, if we can provide him some capital or credit, that person can start his own business, own trade. Then post placement support, migration assistance, like helping him get footing and lodging facilities, retention monitoring, skill upgradation. This point is very important. The skill should also be getting upgraded with time. Then raising the minimum wage employment. So these are some of the way forwards that have been suggested by this standing committee. So this seemingly small article is actually loaded with information and values, provided you are able to process it as per the need of your UPSC syllabus.